Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something really fascinating. It's this idea of the quiet strength, and specifically, why senior men increasingly just choose to stay home. Let's dive right into this.
Society has this really, kind of backwards habit when it comes to aging. We see a quiet, older man, say a guy in his 60s or beyond, who suddenly prefers hanging out at home, and we immediately jump to the conclusion that age has somehow just stolen his happiness. We see that quiet lifestyle and boom, we label it loneliness. We notice he's skipping out on gatherings, and all his well-meaning friends start nagging him, telling him he needs to get out more. But is a quiet lifestyle actually a lonely one? That's the big question we really have to ask ourselves here. It completely challenges this core assumption that if a guy is staying home, he's got to be depressed, or he's just given up on life. But actually, the psychological reality is way more fascinating. A lot of senior men aren't staying home because they've lost their spark. They stay home because they've finally figured out what gives life genuine meaning.
Now, look at this massive disconnect. On one hand, we've got society's loud assumption. We tend to project our own anxieties onto this guy, assuming he's battling depression, isolation, fear, or that he's just, throwing in the towel. We think to ourselves, man, if I were staying home that much, I'd be absolutely miserable, so he must be too. But let's slow down for a second and look at the actual psychological reality. After decades, literally decades, of chasing careers, meeting everyone else's expectations, and just constantly proving themselves to the world, the mature masculine mind shifts. They aren't withdrawing, not at all. They are intentionally moving toward peace, emotional maturity, authenticity, and this incredible inner freedom. So what most people just casually mistake for isolation is in reality one of the greatest signs of emotional maturity. They're finally valuing quality over quantity and depth over distraction.
So, the crucial point is understanding the absolute difference between solitude and loneliness. Society constantly treats them like they're the exact same thing, but psychologically, they are worlds apart. Let's break it down. Solitude is the peaceful, deliberate decision to spend time with yourself simply because your own company is enough. Loneliness, on the other hand, is that painful, gnawing feeling of being emotionally disconnected, which, let's be real, you can totally feel even when you're crammed in a crowded room. A senior guy who genuinely enjoys spending time alone has just become comfortable in his own skin. He's made peace with old regrets. He's finally stopped replaying every single mistake he ever made. The internal conflict is quieted down, which means he no longer needs all that constant external noise just to feel complete.
I want to let this thought sink in for a second. He's not choosing isolation. He's choosing peace. For a lot of older men, this is honestly one of the greatest freedoms they've ever experienced. It is the absolute privilege of emotional maturity. Think about it. When you're younger, guys keep showing up to events not because they actually want to be there, but mostly because they feel obligated. They tolerate relationships that completely drain their emotional batteries. But eventually, a man wakes up and realizes his time is no longer unlimited. He stops measuring his life by how many places he visits, and he starts measuring it by how peaceful he feels when the day is finally over. Let's look at how this deep desire for peace builds up from just the sheer exhaustion of the past. For pretty much a man's entire adult life, he's expected to perform. At work, he's got to be the dependable one. Around his friends, he needs to project confidence. At home, he's the designated problem solver who's expected to stay perfectly calm under pressure and just carry all these heavy responsibilities without a single complaint. Whether anyone actually says it out loud or not, the world is constantly rushing him. It's constantly demanding that he prove his value day after day, year after year. And let's be real here. Surviving a lifetime of awkward cocktail parties, grueling morning commutes, and endless pointless meetings, it's an absolute marathon. That kind of relentless performative pressure doesn't just vanish overnight. It follows him for decades. And then, finally, retirement arrives. The fierce career ambitions sort of just fade into the background. And something really remarkable happens. His home becomes so much more than just a building. It becomes a sanctuary. For the first time in maybe his entire life, he wakes up and realizes those old titles, they just don't matter anymore. Inside those four walls, he isn't being judged by his income bracket or his resume. He doesn't have to compete. He doesn't have to constantly demonstrate how useful he is. He can finally drop that heavy, clunky, emotional armor he's been wearing every single day and just exist. He's embracing his true authenticity, shedding those exhausting social masks, and just living without the crushing pressure to impress anybody. And this brilliantly illustrates how those life priorities completely flip upside down over time. In youth, it's all about the quantity of events, right? It's constant activity. It's saying yes to every single invitation that comes your way. But in those senior years, it shifts entirely. It becomes all about the quality of connection, deep reflection, and vigorously protecting your peace.
Because let's be honest, endless small talk about the weather is exhausting at any age. But eventually, a man simply makes the choice not to spend his valuable, limited remaining time on interactions that add zero value to his life. He isn't rejecting people because he dislikes them. Actually, scratch that. It's more like he's just fiercely protecting his own energy.
Because, think about it, the second you step outside your front door, you immediately surrender a certain amount of control, right? To traffic, to long lines, unexpected delays, and, well, other people's bad attitudes. But look at how senior men protect their peace at home. They decide exactly when to wake up, they choose the background noise, maybe that's smooth jazz, maybe it's a history documentary, or maybe it's just complete beautiful silence. They actively protect their emotional energy by just completely sidestepping unnecessary drama. They're essentially curating an atmosphere that perfectly reflects what they value now. It's a place where the mind can truly relax and the spirit stays totally undisturbed by the wild, unpredictable demands of the outside world.
Which brings us to this wonderfully overlooked point: reclaiming creativity. During a man's working years, pretty much all his mental energy goes towards solving problems for other people, which leaves almost nothing in the tank for himself. But now, his home becomes a workshop for the mind, a studio for new ideas. It becomes a space where his imagination can finally flourish. Think about what that actually looks like in practice. He might spend a long, quiet Tuesday afternoon building something with his own hands. Or maybe he's out caring for a garden, just watching things grow, restoring an old piece of furniture, or honestly, just sitting in a comfortable chair with a really good book. And the beautiful part? He isn't doing this for a promotion. He's not doing it for a paycheck or for a round of applause. He is creating because the process itself brings pure, personal satisfaction. He's reclaiming a piece of his soul that life kind of forced him to put on the back burner. It's this incredible transition from past urgency to present clarity. When you're young, you are essentially living in permanent survival mode. You're constantly rushing between responsibilities, scrambling to pay bills, raising kids, just pivoting from one massive task to the next without ever really hitting the brakes to ask the big, meaningful questions. But deciding to stay home creates this profound space for present clarity. It provides the quiet, stable environment a man needs to reflect on this massive journey he's already traveled, to deepen his wisdom, and to just practice gratitude. He finally has the breathing room to think deeply about his legacy, the people he loves, and what truly mattered along the way.
Just listen to the absolute truth in this statement. The quiet isn't empty. It gives their thoughts the freedom to settle. Modern society has this really tragic habit of celebrating constant busyness. We act as if an overpacked, chaotic schedule is the only real proof you're living a successful life. But an older man, he knows better. Experience has taught him the hard way that a full calendar absolutely does not guarantee a full heart. So what outsiders mistakenly view as just inactivity or boredom is very often one of the most meaningful, internally rich periods of a man's entire life.
Ultimately, all of this points to one incredibly powerful truth. He isn't shrinking his world, he is refining it. Instead of constantly asking, how can I stay busier, he's asking a much better question. What truly deserves my time? True fulfillment doesn't always come from doing more. More often than not, it comes from finally having the freedom to do less, but doing it with intense, deliberate intention. By choosing to stay in his home, he is actively protecting the peace he has worked an entire lifetime to build.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question to chew on. Are you building a life you actually want to spend time in? Next time you see an older man genuinely enjoying the quiet comfort of his own home, please don't feel sorry for him. Validate that quiet strength. He has very likely discovered a life that is finally free from unnecessary noise, pressure, and ridiculous expectations. He's found a sanctuary where he feels most like himself. And it really makes you wonder about your own pursuit of peace, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and until next time, protect your peace.